Hey everybody, this is Kirsten here. Welcome back to the new episode of this podcast. Today we're going to talk about sleep, and this is a topic that is really kind of a big one for me because I've struggled with sleep a lot, and I know that many of you are struggling with it as well. And what I'm going to talk about today is probably not what you are expecting, because we all know the common truths about sleep, how to take care of it, what the perfect nighttime routine should look like, and all that. And I will go over these points, but I will go over these points to show that, you know what, maybe they are not as important, and maybe there's something else that will be key to your better sleep. So this is definitely not something that you would hear from most health coaches, health professionals. I have a different approach to it, and I've learned this from different coaches, tried it out, and I can tell you that what I'm doing right now is working a lot better than taking care of these all super small details, making sure that my sleep conditions are super, super perfect. So I want to start by saying that, my struggles with sleep have been around since I was maybe 21. So it's been many, many years. I'm 38 now, and there's been better times and worse times, but since then, it has never been really like truly restful. Like I haven't had like periods of super long, many, many months of deep sleep. I've never been like a great sleeper, but before that, I was. When I was a teenager, I had no problem sleeping. My mom would have to just like really shake me up to get me to school in the morning. So I never had a problem with that. And they started when I was around 21, and I can link it to the time when I really started getting very obsessed with food and fitness. This was the time when I started losing weight. I joined Weight Watchers. I severely overtrained myself, as you probably already know. And for the longest time, I thought that the reason why I cannot sleep was that I was just so overtrained and overstressed. And it can absolutely be a problem, and it can absolutely be the truth. But you know what? Now, when I'm looking back to these times, and I have a little bit different perspective on it, what I will say is that probably what started then was just a lot of pressure on myself to look a certain way, to be a certain way, not get too quote unquote fat, make sure that I get all my workouts done, make sure that I don't overdo it on food. And I started binge eating, which put a lot of pressure on me too. So looking back, I can see how there are actually so many psychological reasons which probably actually caused these years of really, really poor sleep. And I feel like I didn't figure this out like long time, immediately. It took me a long time to start seeing the connection between your psychology and the sleep. And I've gotten to these results or these conclusions only recently. So let's talk a little bit about the perfect bedtime routine, and something that's been like hammered into our heads to the point where a lot of people are really, really getting stressed about it and making sure that they do everything perfectly, because they are so afraid that if they don't do everything perfectly, their sleep is going to be bad. And if you've had periods of poor sleep, you become afraid of it. And that's a big, big component of this continuing vicious cycle. You're really scared. You're scared to go to sleep because you don't know how tonight's going to turn out. And you wake up at night, you're like, okay, here we are again. It's ongoing. What can I do? And then you become super hyper vigilant, taking care of your perfect sleep routine. So some of the things that are typically recommended for people who have sleep problems, of course, are, make sure that your room is cool, and make sure that your room is really dark, and you have to wake up and go to bed at the same time every single morning, every single night, or you cannot have any screens in the evening, right? You have to get your sunlight in the first 15 minutes after waking. You have to exercise, you have to take your supplements, you have to make sure that you take your magnesium, like all of these things. And I do think that there is definitely some value in it. So let's say that your room is super bright and it is really noisy. Obviously, it's going to be really, really hard to sleep. And I always sleep with an eye mask and earplugs. So this is what I do. But I don't also like obsess anymore about, if there's a little bit of light in the room, because I've learned that it's not so much about that light. It is about these racing thoughts. It is the heightened, kind of elevated state of my nervous system that was actually the reason that kept me up. But we'll get there. Then, some people say that, you have to wake up and go to bed at the same time every single day. And that too, when I started letting go of that rule, because I felt like this is just becoming like so restrictive. If I stay up a little bit longer, I'm gonna feel absolutely awful the next day. Then it just put so much pressure on me. But everybody kept saying it, and I was like, my sleep is so miserable. What can I do? How can I fix this? And I started to make sure that I go to bed every day at the same time, and it had to be like 9:30 or something. And now lately, and I'll tell you like I said, a little bit what I've done. I'm not so focused on that anymore. Like going to bed at the same time every single night and obsessing over it. If I watch something a little bit later and go to bed like an hour later, I go to bed when I'm tired now, not like 9:30 if I'm not actually tired by that time. Some other things that just put a little too much pressure on people, the sunlight, right? Of course, yeah, it is good. It is good to get some sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning. And I have given this recommendation myself too. And I still think that it can be helpful. But now to think that this is what your sleep, that's the only thing what your sleep depends on. And when you get really obsessed with it, you're like feel like you did something bad or wrong. If you didn't get that sunlight, it's actually going to create a situation where this internal like panic about the thing that you didn't do, that will put pressure on you, and that is going to affect your sleep probably more than not getting that sunlight in the first 15 minutes after waking up. Now, the exercise recommendation, you got to exercise to sleep better. Yeah, of course, this is true. But if you say this thing to a person who is regular exercising already, I know firsthand how terribly it pissed me off. So this was the time when I was really severely overtrained, and I would read like article after article that were like saying that you have to just exercise more. And in my mind, I was like, more, like even more, have to exercise more, without realizing that again, it was the internal pressure that was actually keeping me up and keeping me awake. And then over the years, I've gotten so many different recommendations. Sleep on a certain type of mat or a thing, whatever it was called. Like it looked like it had little, I don't know, needles or something in it. Or then you have to put this like grounding device around your ankle or your wrist, or you should take CBD, or you should, I don't know, do so many different things. And over the years, I've tried all of that. I've had so many supplements. There's like a million things that I have really tried, and it's on and off. Sometimes some things help, and then 2 weeks later it just stops working, and then you're like, damn it, I'm up again at 2 a.m. and what's going on. I've even got recommendations like, you absolutely cannot have a piece of chocolate at night because that's going to mess up your blood sugar so bad that this is the thing that's going to wake you up. And I'm like, really? Like one square of chocolate, is this really that big of a deal that this is now the reason why I'm up? Or if you're eating a little bit like later dinner, that's going to keep you up. Again, I'm not saying that there's no truth in it at all, but I think that just like scaring people with these things that you cannot do this and that, like 15 minutes late and your night is screwed. These things are just causing more internal pressure, and they become the things that actually keep you awake, because you keep your nervous system chronically in this like really high stressed state and worried state. So, one really important person that I came across lately, maybe in the last 6 months or so, is a person whose name is Martin Reed. And he calls himself the insomnia coach. And you can check out his website. I first found him on YouTube when I came across some of his videos where he was talking about insomnia and sleep issues. And what he said actually started to really click for me when I watched his videos and listened. And he said things like, you know what, all the health concerns that people are telling you, like you're going to die early and you're going to have this and that and a third health problem. The way he was talking about it, he said, you know what, it's not that terrible. Like you can calm down right now. You're not going to die from this tomorrow. You really shouldn't be like waking up and start panicking and thinking, oh my goodness, am I causing myself, some kind of terrible like problem right now or disease, or am I going to die because I'm often awake? And I had these same concerns. I have said the same things. I was always thinking like, oh my God, am I gonna live a shorter life because of it? And what if my cognitive abilities just like go down and my brain doesn't function anymore. I had all these fears. And when I was watching his videos, Martin Reed's videos on YouTube, he totally calmed me down. He was like, you know what, there's actually, and he shows there's a lot of evidence that shows that what actually is a bigger problem is the thinking about sleep. So if you think that you slept poorly, if you believe that it was crap, if you believe that you have to hit 8 hours every night, if you believe all of these things, this is what's actually causing the damage more than like the occasional sleepless night here and there. And don't get me wrong, I understand it really well. If you constantly struggle with sleep, if you're chronically sleep deprived, it can be horrible. Like I said, I've experienced it, and it's just the worst thing. But what matters so much more is what do you tell yourself about it? What do you tell yourself about it? Can you be like, okay, yeah, this sucked tonight, but or last night, but tonight I'm gonna sleep better? Or are you gonna be like, oh fuck, like my entire day is now ruined. I cannot do anything. I can't go to the gym. I'm useless with work. What are the things that you're telling yourself? Think about it. And I know for sure that I used to catastrophize like this. Everything is ruined now. I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm useless, I'm low energy, life sucks. I used to tell myself these things. And when I was watching these videos, I started doing the opposite. And I signed up for his newsletter too. And he has this really interesting email sequence he sends you the first 14 or 15 days, I think, where he goes over all these myths and stories about sleep, and also like what your ideal sleep should be, like how many hours you should really be getting. And I'm definitely not saying that you shouldn't be getting decent sleep. Of course, you should. It's very, very helpful and helps you with everything, productivity and muscle building and better food choices. Yes, it does. But still, the way you think about it is what actually is going to very likely determine how your next night is going to be, how your next week and next months, as far as the sleep, what are going to look like. It is all actually mental work. It's mindset work. And it has been so, so helpful for me to understand the connection between these things and start panicking less over like a few nights of poor sleep. Now, I also want to tell you about some other things. So I think I mentioned a couple of episodes ago, maybe, that I've been working with a coach myself too, and it has been really, really useful. I don't think maybe I didn't share it here, but I did share it on Instagram. And this is the person I'm working with. He's not a sleep coach per se, but I don't even know how exactly to word it, what words to use to describe what we're doing, but it is a lot of like mindset work and a lot of emotional work. I'm definitely doing a lot of work to explore some of the repressed anger that I've had, some of the repressed sadness that I haven't showed, just like my communication skills, like things that I haven't never said, but I've been wanting to say, and just like standing up for myself more, being less of a people pleaser, understanding the roots of where the roots of the people pleasing are coming from. What are the situations in my life that have made me feel really ashamed? Understanding that shame is a really toxic emotion and we have to get rid of it. So these are the things that I have been working on with my coach. And it has been so, so helpful. And I'll tell you right now that my sleep has gotten a lot better as a result of exploring this BS that's been going on, exploring the state of my nervous system, exploring the stories and beliefs that I have been telling myself about myself or the past events, going back to some situations and expressing my emotions about them. This is the stuff that has actually made the biggest difference in my sleep. It wasn't the magnesium. It wasn't that don't look at any screens before you go to bed. It wasn't that I didn't get sunlight in my eyes directly. It wasn't the CBD oil. It wasn't none of these things. It was my mindset work, understanding that what is keeping me awake and alert is the state of my nervous system and my hypervigilant brain. So that's just how it is. I definitely have a tendency for that. My mind can be very, very racing, and this is the stuff. So the racing mind, it comes from somewhere. It doesn't come from thin air. It comes from past events, maybe even call them traumas. It comes from conditioning patterns. We have some patterns, ways we act, and things that we do that are often rooted in some things that have happened. And all the work, like all the work that I have been doing, I feel like it's paying off, and my sleep is better than it has been in a long time. Now, one more thing that I want to say that I started doing when I really, at some point, really struggled with sleep, and I learned it from somebody else, was starting to talk to my brain at night. And this is, as you know, I did the brain episode not too long ago. I'm a big believer in your mind being in charge of everything. And also because of neuroplasticity, our brains can change as long as we live. They really can change as long as we live. It's called neuroplasticity. And what I started doing was starting to talk to my brain. When I would wake up at night, typically around 3 o'clock, everybody's like, it's your hormones, it's your liver, it's your blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, not anymore, apparently, because it doesn't happen anymore. So what I started doing when I woke up that time was having a conversation with my brain. And I don't know if you think that this is like crazy woo woo BS, whatever. I don't care, because this is what actually started working for me. Didn't work in the beginning, but then it started working. And what I would do, I wake up 3:30 or something, and my mind goes to like things that I have to do, people that I have to talk to, texts that I have to get back to, emails that I have to send. And then I would literally say, hey brain, what are we doing right now? Why are you like this? What's the big panic about? It's 3 a.m. Nobody's awake. We don't have to be awake. There's no panic. There's no rush. Everything will get done. Let's go back to sleep. Okay. And I had to do this brain talk over and over and over again. At first, it didn't work. Then it started to work. And now it's like, if I wake up, if I do. Last night I didn't. Several nights I haven't. So if I do talk, if I do need this brain talk, it's about 75% of the time that it works. And I go back to sleep. It's like you're calming yourself down. It's like you're talking to somebody else. You're like, hey, buddy, what you doing now? Hey, let's go to bed. You can even think, if you have a child, maybe you can say that. Think about it this way. But you're just basically communicating to your brain that, hey, listen, I'm in charge here. I know that there's no panic out there. Nothing's wrong. There's no reason to be up. Let's go back to sleep. And it started to work. So much of it is psychological. And another part that I really want to highlight is that so many of our physical conditions are also psychological. Believe it or not, it's a huge percentage that actually, cases where people have physical pain or physical symptom, insomnia, also a lot of things, chronic pains, fibromyalgia, autoimmune diseases, everything that people are just throwing supplements at you. I'm not saying again that supplements wouldn't help, but a huge percentage of these people who go to their doctors with these complaints, actually their problems are rooted in their brain. This is not to say that they're coming up with them making shit up. No, it's not. I know this because I've had chronic pain. And it wasn't like a thing of like, oh, you just made it up. No, it was very, very real, very, very real. But we have to understand that the source of it is somewhere else. The source is in toxic shame, or chronic sadness that we haven't expressed, or anger. Anger is a really big one. So emotions, sometimes your pain or insomnia, it's a direct representation of your emotion. What's the dominating emotion in your system? And that comes out physically in so many different forms. And also want to mention a couple of really great books on that topic. And just today I talked to somebody who I pointed towards these resources, and she said, oh my God, I understand it now. I see myself on every single page when I read this book. This is totally me. And she has had multiple diagnoses too, but nothing too clear, right? It's like these mysterious conditions that come out and nobody knows what exactly is wrong with you. So she said, I started reading these books that you recommended, and oh my God, I understand this now and I'm getting better. So the two books that I want to mention, John Sarno, you can look up him. He has a book called Mindbody Prescription. And he also has several other books. Healing Back Pain is another one. But Mindbody Prescription was my introduction to this world. And the other one that's really, really cool and really well written and really funny too is Alan Gordon's The Way Out. So these two books really describe how so many chronic symptoms, and chronic is defined by a symptom or pain that doesn't go away after 6 months and doesn't respond to any physical treatments. And you can put insomnia in the same category. So they explain how chronic health conditions are actually usually mind-body conditions, right? So they're caused by your brain being on high alert, and they give you tools how to recover this. So it's a brain and nervous system. And honestly, like it makes me mad how little our medicine understands about this or wants to tell us about this. So many problems could be solved by just teaching people how to express their emotions, how to express their thoughts, how to stand up for themselves more, how to stop people pleasing, because this stuff starts living its own life in your body. It come out physically. This is exactly what happens, and it annoys me that so many healthcare professionals either aren't aware or just don't share this information. Instead, the first thing is always physical. Okay, you have shitty sleep. What supplements can we throw at you? Oh, you have too much copper in your body. Oh, your calcium is off balance. Oh, you need more this and that. Don't eat chocolate. Versus looking deeper, seeing what are the emotions that are underlying emotions for this person that she's hiding, that she doesn't even maybe understand that she has. I wasn't aware of my anger for a very long time. I didn't know that I have it. But then when I start going back to certain events and you realize I really should be pissed about this thing. What is this? And I was never able to feel anger before. Or many other emotions too. So many of these chronic things. And I talked about insomnia today. So many of these chronic conditions are actually brain and nervous system caused. They often do not have physical cause, even though they feel very physical. You automatically think that, oh, this is hurting. The issue must be in the tissue. It's not always. It's definitely not always the case. And my own coach also pointed out that when it comes to autoimmune diseases, 80%, according to one study, 80% of these cases actually that are autoimmune cases are caused by brain and nervous system dysregulation, the very same thing that I'm talking about. And if you think about it, what is an autoimmune disease? It's your cells turning against you, right? Your body starts attacking you, your own tissues. And that, according to him, to my coach, it's just that anger that you haven't released and you're turning it against yourself. That's why your body starts attacking itself. So all these stories about, oh, it's mold and it's like supplement deficiency and it's like a square of chocolate eaten too late. I don't believe this anymore. I just don't believe this anymore. I mean, I'm not saying that mold doesn't impact anybody. Probably does. Yeah, probably does. But to say that everything is like one thing, or these are the main things that are causing these physical issues. This is just overlooking a major part of human health, which is the psychological. So John Sarno, the doctor that I mentioned earlier too, he always says, if you have like these problems, think psychologically. Think psychologically. What has been super stressful for me? What are the things that I want to express but cannot? And think that way, and you will see that your symptoms start to go down. There's of course more work to do, and you have to check out these books if you want to understand these topics better. But I'm absolutely fascinated, and I know that this is true. I've experienced it myself, and I see it in many people that I talk to. They are often saying that, I have this like plantar fasciitis, and despite all the treatments, it hasn't gone away in 9 months. And I know like that this is not it. It's not a physical problem at this point anymore. It's actually psychological, and we have to get to the root of it and understand where it's coming from. And only then we can eliminate the problem, because plantar fasciitis should not last that long. So this is a big topic, and I hope that one day maybe I will have my coach here too on this podcast. It's not going to be anytime soon, though. I'm still working with him, and I want to get to the other side of it, so I can do like a better interview and go into details and maybe share more of why I started working with him, and more of the stuff that I'm not going to talk about right now just yet. We'll see, maybe in the future. All right, so if you're dealing with insomnia, check in with yourself. How am I thinking about this? How much am I letting it ruin my day? How much I'm panicking about it, and start changing your perspective on it. I want to say actually one more thing that I just remembered. Whenever I see, or whatever podcast I'm listening to, like health podcast or something, and they start ranting about the importance of sleep again, I just skip, I just fast forward, because I don't need to hear this anymore. Because always the message is like, oh, it's so bad, it's so terrible, you're not going to get any muscle, it's going to be this and that, and you're probably going to end up like super sick. And I'm like, I don't need to hear this anymore. Like, I don't need to get this scary information in my brain anymore. I know it's probably not good to have too many sleepless nights, but I'm working on my things. I'm working on my psychology. I'm working on my emotions. I'm on my own track, and I don't need anybody to tell me any more like terrible facts about it. It's just like create this more panic and fearful mindset. So this is the approach that I have I have taken. And some time ago, I also mentioned in the podcast that I took off my Aura ring, and I started only wearing it during the day because I wanted to track my steps, but I didn't want to see my sleep because it would stress me out, right? It would stress me out, and the sleep score was bad, and my REM was poor, and my deep sleep was like also not good, and I woke up too many times. And every morning when I would open on my phone, I would open the data, these like awful numbers would look back, and I'm like, oh my god, again. And I totally let this impact my brain. And then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna actually take that ring off. I'm not gonna look at it anymore. Like during the night, I don't want to get the sleep data. I just don't want to, because it's just not doing any good. So I took it off for nights, and I started wearing it only during the day. And then actually now at the point where I took the ring away completely, because I worked with a chiropractor who did a lot of testing on me. He was testing and EMFs, electromagnetic fields, and how they impact my body. We tested the wireless headphones, we tested the Oura rings and ring, and I realized that my body actually responds really poorly to these things. So I decided to just stop wearing these devices. If you're wearing any of them, by all means, do what you need to do what you want to do. I'm not telling you to take them off. If you're doing just fine, totally okay. I will just say that the impact on you might be really subtle. You may not feel it every day, but if you can have somebody to test it on you, like a chiropractor, it's definitely helpful. In his opinion, some of the worst things are the earbuds, the wireless ones. He said that he sees so many patients whose nervous systems are pretty jacked from using them. And I decided to take my Oura ring off too. I do want to track my steps, so I got myself this really old school, simple pedometer. It's like literally you clip it onto your pants or your sports bra or whatever, and it tracks your steps just as well without any EMF. So I kind of transitioned from Oura ring to wear it not at night anymore, only during the day, and then I took it off completely. So this is my take on sleep problems, and less panic, people. Less panic and less fear around this. Check your mindset. How are you seeing this? See if you're over preparing yourself for sleep. See if you're getting like super meticulous. See if you're worrying too much. What's the language you use? How do you perceive the whole thing? A lot of times, if you just relax more, you give your mind a little more space for relaxation, and when you are able to figure out the stressors in your life and just be a little more chill about them, notice certain patterns, all that stuff that I just told you, this is the time when your nervous system will settle, it will calm down, it will not be on high alert all the time anymore. And as a result, you're going to get better sleep as well. This has definitely been the case for me. All right, this is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.